book that is placed on the table is a very, very famous book. It's not just an international bestseller, but it's a path-breaking book in the field of yoga, Autobiography of a Yogi. Thank you, Swami. And of course, we are in a yoga conference. And that book has touched millions of people across the globe, and various aspects of yoga have been covered in the book. I'm sure all of us know it, and most of us even teach this book in some of our colleges and universities. So we start with the third session for the day. Today's been a marathon day, and we're also saying that by the end of the day, either you will be realized or you want to go home and sleep. But the thing is that we are going to be here not just looking at another session, but a rich session, which is meditational techniques in yoga. There will be totally 6 speakers, and the chairperson will be Swami Krishnanandji from the Yoga Satsang Society. We have Dr. Veena Londe, Department of Sanskrit, University of Mumbai. We have Dr. Pradyumna Singh Shekhawat, Head Department of Yoga and SOL Jain Vishwabharati Institute at Rajasthan. Dr. Mrs. Bimla Sharan from Jodhpur, and we have Swami Satishanandji from the Ramakrishna Ashram, and Dr. Tabassum Sheikh again from Mumbai University. I'll be doing a dual role over here, also moderating the session a little bit. So the format of this particular program is of course similar to the previous ones. Only thing is that I'll be coming again and again in between, rather than just coming in the beginning and the end. So we have Swami Krishnanandji from the Yoga Satsang Society. He's got a very rich academic background even before becoming a monk, which he's been for the last 44 years. He's an IITian from the 1965 batch. So it is always said about spirituality, especially monkhood, जो कुछ नहीं करता life में fail हो जाता है वो जाके monk बनता है. It is not true. Actually, the people who understand the world can only know how to give up the world, or rather go beyond the world. So here we have Swami Krishnanandji, who will be the chairperson and also our first speaker, and he will be speaking on the Kriya Yoga for balanced life. Swamiji. Would you be comfortable sitting? Yeah.
Dear friends, first I would like to thank the organizers of this yoga festival for bestowing this special honor on me to be able to participate in this festival. The subject of this given to me for this talk is balanced living, Kriya Yoga for balanced life. So let me dwell a little bit on this subject of balance. What is balance? This word balance, although we all are very familiar with it, we don't immediately realize its vast importance and the connotation that it has from microcosmos to macrocosmos. The entire universe is held by a complex set of forces in perfect balance, such as the forces of gravity and the forces of expansion. If you go within the body where the microcosmos is, there you also have a very complex set of forces that are working there, keeping the whole system in a kind of a dynamic balance until this life continues to exist. Various systems are there, the immune system, the circulatory system, the digestive system, and so on and so forth. All these have to function very well together in balance. So in this context, various factors of individual's life, what we will talk about here is what is involved in our individual lives by the meaning of balance. The Bhagavad Gita essentially is a scripture on the subject of balance. Balance, how to live a balanced life. In fact, it defines yoga as samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam means equilibrium, balance, the art of proper living. Yoga is the art of proper living. If you go to chapter number 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, you will find that there are verses 55 to 68 that describe the characteristics of what is called Sita Prajna, a man of steady wisdom who leads an exemplary life of balance. Yoga is the art by which you can attain that. Now let me go to Kriya Yoga. What is Kriya Yoga and how it will help to succeed in living a life of balance. The word Kriya Yoga was made very famous throughout the world by this book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which is read by most of you, and those of you who have not read it can easily find it here in our Kendra. But it is not a term that is very new, it is a very ancient term, and it is also there in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, chapter number 2, Tapaswadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Tapasya or self-discipline, self-study and surrender to God constitute Kriya Yoga. So there are three aspects to this term Kriya Yoga according to Patanjali: Tapasya, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhan. All the three together form the system of Kriya Yoga. There are many branches based on this definition of Kriya Yoga by Patanjali. They can be Bhakti Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Japa Yoga, Laya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Raj Yoga, and so on and so forth. You must have heard many of these names in other contexts. Depending upon the Guru Parampara you follow, the specific things within that path will differ from path to path, but this whole system is based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Now, how does this system work? In the parampara of our Guru, starting from Mahavatar Babaji all the way to Paramahansa Yogananda, we use the word Kriya Yoga to mean a specific technique of pranayama. How this Kriya Yoga works, I will go a little bit into detail. All of us are very much aware of our there are many subtle forces working within our lives to make life what it is. And among these factors, there are four specific factors which are very subtle. One is the mind, second is prana, or life force, third is the physical inhalation, exhalation, breath, and the last fourth is the sex force. These four factors are very intimately related to each other, and it is not easy to describe this relationship between these factors. But they are the most important factors that are making life what it is. If you disturb one of these factors, all other factors also get disturbed. If you try to control one of these factors and bring them under conscious control, then the rest of the factors automatically come also under control. For example, take the case of simple inhalation, exhalation. If you are in a very angry mood, start breathing in a certain way, take deep inhalation, exhalation. Automatically, because the mind is related to that breath, the mind will come under control. Out of these four factors, the physical breath and sex force are the ones which are more or more familiar with, their effects are felt by all of us on a physical level. The mind and prana are something that are beyond the common experience, how to control the mind and prana. That is the problem. These techniques that we are taught by our parampara, our guru parampara, they teach us how to bring each one of these under control. The more subtle the factor, the more important it is in its effect. For example, thought. Thought is very, very subtle and very difficult to catch hold of. But that thought is the most important factor which makes our life either hell or heaven, depending upon the way thoughts are influencing our activities. We don't realize that all our things that is happening in our lives start with a subtle thought inside. We have three bodies, they say the yogis: the causal body, physical body, the astral body. The causal body is made of thoughts. That is the one that causes the whole body together. So who are we then? The Gita says, Indriyani paranyahu, indriyebhya param mana, manasastu para buddhi, yo buddhi paratastu saha. The senses are said to be superior to the physical body. The intelligent will is superior to the mind, and the one that is superior to the intellect is the real self. So the techniques teach us how to realize this self. The moment you start practicing the techniques of Kriya Yoga or the Guru, whatever the Guru has taught you, then slowly our identification with the body will break, our identification with the mind will break, identification with intelligence will break, and we will realize who we really are. Relevance of yoga in our daily life. What do we really want? If we ask, what do we really want in our lives? All of us are seeking happiness. Nobody wants to be unhappy. When we are born, we get into mother's womb and start attracting matter around our souls. The soul, according to our Guru, enters the body at the time of conception and then starts to gather the matter around it to form the physical body and the senses. When you come out of the body, then you are aware of so many things around you, so many things are influencing the mind and the senses and pulling the mind out. In the beginning, when the baby is born, the mind is mostly interiorized. Baby is not so much aware of outside. Most of it is busy with developing the body. I give you a little challenge. You go to your homes and try to compete with a little baby, newborn baby, or maybe a few months old, to see who can stay longest without blinking eyes. And I know the baby will win. The reason is simple. The energy is all interiorized and energy is all not flowing out. So it is that coming out of the energy through the senses out in the world that makes our eyes restless, the mind restless. This subject is so vast that I can continue talking for quite some time, but since the time is limited, I will confine myself only to the basic simple points that as the baby starts to grow and different experiences come into its life. People around it are showering with love and affection and so on and so forth, caressing it, cuddling it, all kinds of experiences. The baby is being flooded with those experiences from the senses. People are so nice. They start smiling. If you smile back, they encourage you to smile more, so on and so forth. The baby grows maybe 3-4 years old, and the same people who are smiling and caressing and kissing, they start scolding you. Don't do this, don't do that, don't go here, don't go there. And the baby starts getting confused. Then comes the school, then comes TV, then comes people, media, newspapers, peer pressure, on and on and on. You grow up into an adult. Your identification is all confused with this mind and experiences. And what comes in the end, this identification of prana with those senses and these experiences gives rise to the ego. The ego starts to develop. A time comes when we are ego bound and mind bound. We become slaves of the mind and slaves of the ego and its likes, dislikes and sanskars of the past. I have seen so many real life stories in this life. 44 years I have been a monk, and I have personally seen multimillionaires come to me and say how unhappy they are. They can't even hold the eating spoon straight. Their hand is just shaking like this because they are so nervous. Their life, what happens ultimately is that the life becomes all topsy-turvy and unbalanced, and you get confused. Where is the happiness in all this? So then you turn inward, start seeking that something is missing. What is missing is because your life is unbalanced. There is an exterior life, there is an interior life. The exterior life is what we say life is. Nobody teaches us anything about the life inside me. Nobody teaches me how to control breath. Nobody teaches me how to control the mind or thoughts in my schools. That is all that was in the Gurukul times. Now who is teaching all that? Now I am so happy that the whole world is coming back and celebrating 21st June as the World Yoga Day, where everybody is then going to look inward. This was my Guru's prediction way back when he went to America. That day will come when yoga will become a household word throughout the world. So to break this ego and its tendencies and make that prana turn inward is the key. How to attain that prana, to go inward, break it away from the senses, what they call pratyahara in the Ashtanga Yoga. How to attain that? Kriya Yoga, the pranayam technique of Kriya Yoga is one of the keys of being able to do that. And the Gita says that even doing this, you need to live a balanced life in order to be able to do this and succeed in it. It says, Natyasnatastu yogosti nachaikanta manasnatah nachati swapnashilasya jagruto nayucha arjuna. Gorman, the scanty eater, the person who oversleeps, the one who sleeps too little, none of these find success in yoga. He who with proper regularity eats, relaxes, works, sleeps, remains awake, will find yoga the destroyer of suffering. So balanced life in outer life and inner life. Both our Guru taught us that our life has to be balanced by daily morning and evening meditation periods of practice of yoga, in which we work with our minds and our hearts, with our forces inside that are bring that into stability. And then outside, during the daytime, to do selfless service. The life has to be balanced between selfless service on the outside and meditation and devotion on the inside. When this happens, my life is a success. That is the key to our lives. Those who follow this all over the world, thousands of people are following it, and they have found success in their lives. Their lives have been transformed. The transformation of our lives through this is the indication that we are progressing to the right goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swamiji. We began with autobiography of Yogi and to all the concepts in the Bhagavad Gita. And the best part is that time management. It was very nice to see that it was absolutely ended in the right time. With the next speaker, I'm not worried about time management because he is worried when he's going to get out. He's got a flight to catch. So I told him मेरा बैग लेके आओ. नहीं मुझे अभी तक गेस्ट हाउस जाके लेना है. So as a general rule, we'll follow what Gauri ma'am had set up for all of us. 8 minutes plus 2, 10 minutes. So thank you for that. So we have Dr. Pragya Singh Shekhawat ji from the Department of Yoga as well as Jain Vishwabharati Institute delivering his speech. So.
Good evening all, respected dais and all the dignitaries. Today I am going to present my paper on a specific technique of meditation. We call it Priksha meditation. You all have heard from yesterday evening that what is yoga, what is its definitions, how the different schools of yoga emerges, and in previous session madam says that the texts are the same but the interpretations of texts are different, and that difference made many schools of yoga or many paths of yoga. When we study all the paths of yoga, all these types of yoga, whether it is tantra, hatha, jnana, karma, all these leads you to meditation. And what is meditation? Many people define meditation as contemplation, as thinking, as concentrating on an object or paying attention to things. But a person, Lord Mahavir, the 24th Tirthankar of Jain religion, he said meditation as perceive and know. वर्तमान क्षण में रहना, वर्तमान में रहना ही उन्होंने योग या ध्यान बताया. He said sampikkhaye appagam appayenam, means see you thyself. आत्मा के द्वारा आत्मा को देखें, स्वयं स्वयं को देखें. And this aphorism later became the principle of a system of Jain Yoga that known as Priksha meditation, which was formulated by late Acharya Tulsi and Acharya Sri Mahapragya ji, and they are also the founder of our university, that is Jain Vishwabharati University, Ladnu, Rajasthan. What is Priksha meditation? Here Priksha, the word root means iksha, which means to see, and the prefix here, that is priksha, it means to see deeply. And what do you have to see? क्या देखना, means देखना है, पर क्या देखना? Then Acharya Mahapragya says that whatever is happening, only see that. तभी वर्तमान में रह सकते हैं कि जो अभी हो रहा है सिर्फ उसी को देखें. When we are thinking about anything or when we are planning about anything, then we are either in past or either in our planning for future. We are not in present. He says that living in present is the meditation, and that becomes the major principle of Priksha meditation. It is a system of meditation engaging one's mind fully in perception of subtle, internal and innate phenomena of consciousness. Aim of Priksha meditation, that is Sampikkhaya Appagam Appayanam. And how it works, I will take only 2 minutes of you. How it works, I can just show you how Priksha meditation is different from other meditation. Please sit erect. We will do small 2-minute practical session. When we are talking about yoga and meditation, then these are of practice. When we don't practice, then this knowledge is not fruitful. Just close your eyes and make a jnana vitaraga mudra of hands, left hand, and take the right hand palm on your left hand and just concentrate on your hands. See whatever happening in your fingers, in your palms. Only perceiving, सिर्फ महसूस करना है जो महसूस हो रहा है, न कल्पना और न ही भविष्य की योजना. Okay, relax, open your eyes. This is a technique. I think nobody had found any new thing in this. But this half a minute is a time when you are in present. आप सिर्फ उस समय अपने साथ हैं. So if we can live for 30 seconds, 40 seconds in this position, we can live for 1 day, 2 days, or in our whole life also. So that is the basic principle of Priksha meditation. So now we will discuss the constituents of Priksha meditation. It is divided into 8 major parts. First one is Kayosar, that means relaxation with self-awareness. It is very much resembles with the Yoga Nidra. Some difference was there, but it resembles with Yoga Nidra, and it helps to your mind, body free from physical, mental and emotional tensions. And the second part is Antaryatra, means internal trip from last trip, that tip of your spinal cord, that you know all the Mooladhara chakra, and in Priksha meditation we call it the Shakti Kendra, and that is the last where the Sahasrara is there, that is the Jnana Kendra. We will do the internal trip from that Shakti Kendra to Jnana Kendra in between our spinal cord, and these are some scientific elaborations in this picture, okay, how it is helpful in this. Next one is Swasa Priksha, perception of breathing. In this we have to first we do the deep breathing, and after then we do the Samavritti Swasa Priksha, means it is sometime similar to Anulom Vilom Pranayam. Then next part is Sharira Priksha. We have to concentrate on each and every part of our body, starting from the right big toe up to the head region, and we have to feel only whatever is happening in our body. Next one is Chaitanya Kendra Priksha, means perception of psychic centers. Acharya Mahapragya says that there are 13 major psychic centers in our body, which includes 5 special senses, and others are the locations where we have some endocrine glands are there. So we have to concentrate on each psychic center for some time and feel whatever is happening at that center. This will energize your centers, and from the Shakti Kendra to Jnana Kendra we have to do this trip. These are the description of all the centers, where they are located, and whatever the anatomical structure presents there. And after that, this Lesha Dhyan. In Jaina philosophy, the word Lesha is there. 2 types of Lesha is there. One is Shubha Lesha and other is one is Ashubha Lesha. This Krishna Neela Kapot, these are the Ashubha Leshas, and Tej Padma and Shukla, these are the Shubha Lesha. And according to this, Acharya Mahapragya also give a principle of personality, how we can divide the personality according to the color, and this system of Lesha Dhyan is basically belongs with our aura, color of aura. And according the Acharya Mahapragya says that the color of aura will define our personality. And after that, that is another part, important part, that is Bhavana and Anupriksha. Bhavana, it is matched with Dharana. We have to focus our mind on a single thought. And in Anupriksha, the auto-suggestion is there. We have to concentrate on a specific part of our body and then give some suggestions for there. So these are the different things, different parts, constituents of Priksha meditation, and these are some benefits and outcomes which we have got in our laboratory. We have a good physiological and psychological laboratory or in our university, and that there we have do almost more than 45 these PhD researches, and more than 100 papers have been published in various nationals and international journals, and these are the gist of that in which part we have do the researches in this field. So with this, I want to conclude my session. I think I am on time. Thank you for Chandigarh administration and all of you for giving me a very good opportunity to express my views and introduce you with our system of meditation, that is Priksha meditation. Om Arham.
You know, I was just going to prepare the chit to conclude, but the idea was not to conclude. You may miss your flight. So I know it was not a very easy thing for anybody to conclude in the right time, but both the speakers have done that very nicely. Since Sir has to Pradnya Sir has to leave to the airport, I would request our chairperson Swamiji to kindly hand over the token as our token of love and respect, so that Sir can proceed to the airport. Kindly give a round of applause. Thank you so much. We have some of the volunteers who will help you also. Thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Veena Londe, and her topic is on meditative practices in Patanjali Yoga Sutras.
नमस्कार. I thank the organizers of the seminar for giving me this opportunity to present my views on meditative practices in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Since there is time constraint, I will tell you my conclusion first, and then I will proceed towards it. But before that, little bit about the word yoga. So many explanations were given since yesterday, but yoga is explained as samadhi by Vyasa in his commentary on Yoga Sutra, and it is said to be characteristic of chitta, pervading all its planes, that is mudha, kshipta, vikshipta, ekagra and niruddha. The journey of yoga is towards this one-pointed and restrained chitta, which will establish the seer in his own form. Etymologically, the word samadhi means balance from all sides and suggests harmonious existence at all levels. The loss of balance gives forth adhi, that is mental disease, and this, when trickles down on physical plane, results into vyadhi, that is physical disease. So my conclusion now, all the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga are meditative. Yama and Niyama, their importance in Ashtanga Yoga is least understood, let aside its practice. This is a framework for the practice of different limbs of yoga. These can be interpreted as values which one has to inculcate in life. The 5 yamas refer to the 5 innate behavioral tendencies to be controlled. I want to explain Satya and Brahmacharya in a different way, so I am focusing on that. Satya is derived from the root asa, to be, to exist, and thus means worthy of existence. Brahmacharya refers to a lifestyle which takes one towards ultimate reality. It means purposeful existence supported by lifestyle of regulated consumption, barely essential for existence. It also implies avoiding overindulgence. These yamas provide a universal framework which makes us humane, conservation-oriented, existence-promoting, consuming bare essential, and abstaining from stealing and hoarding. These are the basic tenets of the social wellness and even more profound ecological wellness. The 5 niyamas provide a universal framework not only of emotional wellness consisting of satisfied nature, tolerant of hardship and uncertainty, being able to trust and submit. They also lay the ground rules for effective learning, namely ordering, regular self-study, hard work, deriving satisfaction and avoiding self-indulgence, which together shape individual's character. While imbibing these principles in life, contrary thoughts do arise. The thoughts of aggression, grabbing due to greed, holding out of anxiety, inconsiderate consumerism, discontentment all the time, and others make the chitta unstable. Their vitarka is caused by anger, greed and delusion, which lead to unending misery and ignorance. Patanjali suggests pondering over the opposites, pratipaksha bhavanam, as an effective means to combat negative thoughts. This technique is more deep than venting out thoughts and emotions or suppressing them. An undesirable mental habit is replaced by a habit of an exactly opposite kind. In short, in yama and niyama, the focus of attention, observation and pondering is our behavior. One should scan this constantly and diligently and correct it wherever necessary. This is a meditative technique given by Patanjali to minimize sorrow and ignorance that pervade human life. Asana, in essence, everybody knows, is a seat. It means a seat, but a physical seat which indicates physiological and functional stability. In yoga, all the succeeding steps refer to subtle, abstract functions which are likely to have inverse impact on a psychosomatic personality, and therefore there is a need to have dynamic stability which is rendered by the asanas. This is to be attained effortlessly. Asana is not just attaining a particular position anyhow and coming out of it. It can be used, attention can be used as a tool here to observe body sensations and train the brain areas which are normally unused. Now we go to pranayama. The special feature of pranayama is the manipulation of breathing by breaking the movement of inhalation and exhalation and not just observing it. The meditative nature of pranayama becomes clear by its effect. It makes the mind capable of dharana. Its practice makes the mind so calm that it can now focus on a particular spot. Pratyahar is the last limb of the Bahiranga Yoga. It is about the withdrawal of senses in words. Now we go to Antaranga Yoga, which is a succession of 3 limbs. Dharana is focusing attention on an internal or external object. Dhyana is uninterrupted current of cognition, flow of awareness towards the object chosen in dharana. Dhyana develops into samadhi when only the object shines in the mind and the consciousness is devoid of its essential nature. The 3 together constitute Sanyama, which means literally a well-balanced state. It is a key for vibhuti, that is attainments. It leads to illumination of wisdom, that jayat prajnalokaha. This can be applied in stages to numerous objects, tasya bhumishu vinyogaha. These attainments are called siddhis in ordinary life, but are considered as obstacles on the path of samadhi. This tool of Sanyama is seen to be applied instinctively by scientists, artists, researchers and other professionals fruitfully. Many miraculous powers that are mentioned in the 3rd chapter of Vibhuti-pada are achieved in modern times, not through yoga but in spite of it. The discoveries taken up by scientists in collaboration over the years in modern times are excellent examples of the technique of Sanyama, that is, focusing attention, acute uninterrupted observation and absorption in that object. Without knowing the yogic process, it is executed by them in the similar manner spontaneously. This is not preceded by Bahiranga Yoga, as they might be oblivious of Ashtanga Yoga. Let me give you an example of God particle. Is the nickname of subatomic particle called Higgs boson. Its existence was predicted by Higgs in 1960. This led to a 40-year search and a large hadron collider was constructed in Switzerland. The existence of Higgs boson was confirmed in July 2012. The research involved thousands of scientists all over the world. In the search of the existence of Higgs boson, the scientists have reached the subtlest of the subtle, almost up to Prakriti. Production of finer equipments. Modern researchers have produced finer equipment to observe such phenomena by doing Sanyama on external objects. This highly sophisticated equipment is their extended vision, reaching up to the subtlest of the subtle and biggest of the big. This reaches in the remote past, both covering time and space. The construction of sophisticated machinery, computational techniques, creation of World Wide Web are the objects chosen for meditation by these researchers, and years of hard work and penetrating insight have proved them successful. After years of observation, contemplation, absorption, there emerged Ritambhara Prajna, which gave them insight into cosmic truth, that is Ruta. Gravitational waves. The detection of gravitational waves from a merger of 2 black holes was announced in February 2016 by LIGO Scientific Collaboration. These waves were predicted by Albert Einstein on the basis of his theory of general relativity in 1916. The search for these began in 2002 and the proof was found in September 2015, which was announced in 2016. Thus can we say that Sanyama on these waves by thousands of researchers from the globe has proved it to be fruitful. Proposal of yoga training. In modern times, the collaborative research is preferred in which synergy of all works wonders. The researchers involved in such endeavors are masters in their field, having the capacity of contemplating and pondering so deeply as to land up almost in trance. They are rarely trained in Ashtanga Yoga. It is proposed that such training will make them balance on all aspects of their personality, namely social, personal, physical, physiological and emotional, and moreover, they will be able to march towards spirituality also. Proposal of yoga training for artists. They also have high caliber and also have the capacity to focus, penetrate, become one with the object, and then create wonderful writing or give exquisite performances. They are also not trained systematically in yoga, but if they are trained, then their capacities would be channelized. Their intuitive insight then would flower into pratibha, and which would manifest in ever new forms. Use of Sanyama in medical field. According to Patanjali, a person doing Sanyama on mental images of other person gets the knowledge of his chitta, whether it is distracted, repulsive or calm. Pratyayasya parachitta jnanam. It is also said that doing Sanyama on one's own heart center gives knowledge of one's own chitta. Thus this technique of Sanyama may prove beneficial to psychiatrists and psychotherapists. They undergo a rigorous training in counseling, empathy and similar issues. The technique of Sanyama can be helpful to them. Sanyama on Nabhi Chakra gives knowledge of the arrangement of body. There is a navel bulb in the center of the body, which is created first like the root of the banana tree. From that navel bulb are created head and other organs upwards, and the feet and others downwards. If the medical doctors, along with their training in medicine, do Sanyama on Nabhi Chakra, they would have an insight into the arrangement of different organs and their interrelatedness. This insight would give them holistic understanding of diseases and disorders. But everybody is not so capable of going directly into observation, pondering over and trance. The majority of us are people who are really restless. So the chitta of a person who need not be a yoga practitioner gets distracted due to physical reasons like diseases and laziness. And there might be a variety of reasons ranging from mental lethargy, doubt, carelessness, seeing illusions which will make the mind restless. The unceasing craving for sensual objects, as also eagerness to ascend higher, and an inability to hold that position can really increase distractions. So these obstacles make the chitta restless and scattered. These will definitely give rise to sorrow, which turns into despair because of the inability to remove it. The distraction trickles down on the physical level, giving rise to tremors and hard breathing. These obstacles and their concomitants are met with my people in daily life, whatever profession they are pursuing or whatever stage of life they are in. Patanjali gives various means of pacification of chitta, ranging from recitation of Omkara, focusing on some internal points, cultivating positive attitudes, fixing mind on sense and other means, or the best one is as you desire. If nothing of this suits you, you may meditate on anything that you desire. And all these are clubbed under Chitta Prasadana. So this is my conclusion. All the limbs of Ashtanga can be practiced as meditation. Those who are using Sanyama, independent of the system, can be taught the other limbs of yoga to make them more balanced. And for removing distractions of mind, practices grouped under Chitta Prasadana can be followed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insights. And now, we know there's a difference in the Patanjali that is taught in the academics and Patanjali of Baba Ramdev ji. And of course, he's going to be here. The next speaker is Mrs. Mimla ji from Jodhpur, and her her topic is techniques in meditation and heartfulness. Ma'am.
Very good evening. Honorable Chairperson Swamiji Krishnananda ji, other respected delegates on the dais, and off the dais, dear brothers and sisters, all the volunteers who took care of us since from Jodhpur to this place, Chandigarh administration, my regards to everyone. मेरे लिए एक बहुत सरप्राइज था जब इसके लिए कॉल आया, तो मैंने एक ही ट्रेन आती है जोधपुर से कालका, उसमें टिकट बुक करवा लिए थे, पर वो कालका का रास्ता बहुत खराब है, किसी ने बोला पानी भी नहीं मिलता है। तो क्योंकि चंडीगढ़ पहली बार आ रही थी तो मुझे एक अंदर एक्साइटमेंट थी कि योगा के विद्वानों से मिलने जा रही हूँ, बिकॉज उसमें श्री श्री रविशंकर, बाबा रामदेव एंड ऑल बहुत सारे नाम थे। तो मुझे लग रहा था, मैं तो एक साइंस की स्टूडेंट हूँ, आई एम ए स्टूडेंट ऑफ एनवायरमेंटल साइंसेस, और मैं पिछले 20 साल से सिर्फ हार्टफुलनेस मेडिटेशन का अपने गुरु के सानिध्य में, हार्टफुलनेस इंस्टीट्यूट के सानिध्य में प्रैक्टिस कर रही हूँ, और उसके तहत मैं चंडीगढ़ जा रही हूँ। तो मुझे लगा कि बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा, पर यहाँ से IAS मैम कीर्ति गर्ग जी का फोन आया एंड शी कॉल्ड एंड शी सेड कैसे आ रहे हो। तो मैंने उनको बताया ट्रेन से। तुमने कहा नहीं, सो पोलाइटली एंड लविंगली शी सेड कि मैम आप फ्लाइट बुक कर देंगे हम आपके लिए, आप फ्लाइट से आइए। एंड टू मी माई टीयर स्टार्टेड रोलिंग डाउन कि बाप रे इतनी तवज्जो, तो सोचो वहां का क्या वातावरण होगा। एंड IAS saying in such a humble and such a humility, it was मेरा हार्ट पूरा एकदम वो हो गया कि नहीं मुझे जाना है, and it was possible. Now there are a number of techniques of meditation. My topic is techniques in meditation, heartfulness. तो अगर हम गौर करें तो हमारा सारा जीवन फीलिंग्स और इमोशंस की चारों तरफ चलता है। जैसे मेरी चंडीगढ़ के लिए यात्रा शुरू हुई तो अंदर से एक फीलिंग आई, इतने अच्छे लोग, और उसके बाद में एक इमोशन अंदर से और इतना सारा प्यार। तो देयर कम्स द रोल ऑफ हार्ट। और हम जितना ज्यादा हार्ट पे अगर मेडिटेट करते जाते हैं, एज वी कीप ऑन मेडिटेटिंग ऑन हार्ट, we start receiving the messages from the heart. We get connected with our heart, and as the process goes on, our mind gets regulated, and mind understands that in this entity heart is important. तुम शांति से बैठ जाओ। न्यूरोट्रांसमीटर्स, न्यूरॉन्स सब जो एक तरीके से पहले नेगेटिविटी की तरफ प्रोवोक करते हैं, वो सारे सेटल होने लग जाते हैं। लाइक जस्ट नाउ स्वामी जी वाज सेइंग, हम सब जितने भी लिविंग बीइंग्स हैं, हमारी 3 बॉडीज हैं। एक फिजिकल बॉडी जो कि हमारा ये बाहर का शरीर है, ये हमको जेनेटिकली मिलता है हमारे पेरेंट्स से। कोई लंबा है, काला है, पतला है, गोरा है, इसमें हम बहुत ज्यादा रद्द बदल नहीं कर सकते, पर इसकी हम बेहतर केयर करते हैं, जिसको हम अन्नकोश कहते हैं। इसको हम इसके लिए अच्छा खाना खाते हैं। हम इवॉल्व होना चाहते हैं फिजिकल लेवल पे। वी वॉन्ट टू रीच टू द हाइट्स एंड वी हैव ऑलरेडी रीच्ड। सेकेंड, जो हमारा शरीर है वो आत्मा है हमारा। इट इज इम्यूटेबल। हमने किसी ने देखा नहीं है, बट उस एसेंस को फील करते हैं, और उसका फूड है आनंद। उसको आनंद कोश कहते हैं। और तीसरा शरीर हमारा सूक्ष्म शरीर है, सटल बॉडी है, जो 4 चीजों से बना हुआ है, मन, चित्त, बुद्धि, अहंकार। जैसा कि आज सुबह हिज एक्सीलेंसी गवर्नर साहब भी कह रहे थे कि हम सब का बैलेंस, तो अगर ये चारों चीजें हमारी इतनी सटल हो जाए, ये जो शरीर, फिजिकल शरीर, ये सिर्फ फीलिंग्स और इमोशंस इन चारों से ही डेवलप होता है, इन्हीं पे काम कर रहे हैं। इन चारों का क्या फूड है? इन चारों का फूड है ज्ञान। तो शरीर के लिए तो हम अन्न दे सकते हैं, आत्मा का फूड तो आनंद है। सूक्ष्म शरीर को क्या दिया जाए? हाथ डाल के अंदर उसको कुछ खिला तो नहीं सकते, मन को कैसे करें, चित्त को, बुद्धि को, अहंकार को। तो इसका जैसा ये है वैसा ही फूड दिया जाएगा इसको। चूंकि ये इतनी सटल है, एसेंस फॉर्म में है, तो इसका फूड भी उतना ही सटल होगा। तो इसका फूड इज मेडिटेशन। As we meditate, we get connected to our heart. अब मेडिटेशन के बहुत सारे तरीके हैं। कोई कंसंट्रेशन है, कहीं पर माइंडफुलनेस है। अभी प्रेक्षा ध्यान बोल के गए थे दूसरे एक ब्रदर। एंड सो मेनी विपासना। गोल सबका एक ही है, सब खुद से कनेक्ट होना चाहते हैं, सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन करना चाहते हैं। एंड गॉड रियलाइजेशन इज नथिंग बट द सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन। तो हम सब खुद को जानना चाहते हैं। अब हम पे डिपेंड करता है कि हम किस ऑब्जेक्ट को लें मेडिटेशन के लिए। हम अगर अपने कंधों पे ध्यान करेंगे तो क्या होगा? हमारा फोकस कंधों तक कन्फाइन हो जाएगा, कंधे हमारे डेवलप हो जाने वाले। क्योंकि मेडिटेशन क्या है? कल से हम सुन रहे हैं उसका डेफिनेशन, कि किसी भी चीज के बारे में सोचना और उसको लगातार बनाए रखना, टू रिमेन इन दैट कंडीशन। एंड लाइक व्हाट yesterday श्री श्री रविशंकर जी was saying कि extending the life is celebration. So meditation is nothing but extending the life, it's a celebration only. तो हम जितनी देर उस थॉट में बने रहे, उसमें अंदर गहरे उतरते चले जाएं। और वो कैसे पॉसिबल है? जितने हम सटल होते जाएंगे उतने ही सटल हम उसके अंदर उतरते चले जाएंगे। तो अगर हम कंधों पे मेडिटेट करते हैं या हम किसी लाइट पे, ऑब्जेक्ट पे करते हैं, तो हम अपने आप को वहां कन्फाइन कर लेते हैं। अब हार्ट इज द सीट ऑफ लाइफ, हार्ट is the seat of divinity, and the workplace of mind is heart. So heart is very important for all of us. A man is alive till the heart beats. और बायोलॉजिकली भी जैसे एक हमारे पहले ब्रदर ने कहा था, it is the pumping station. Purified blood is supplied to each and every atom of our body. So just imagine if we all are meditating on our heart and the purified blood reaches to every cell, every nucleus of our body. How charged we are. How subtle we'll become. More subtler we are, more connected we are to our inner selves. And more connected we are surely able to realize our inner self, ourself. So initially, this heartfulness meditation, which we are doing, in this we sit with a thought, simple thought, that source of divine light is there in my heart, and I am getting attracted towards it. क्योंकि इस पूरे अंधेरे कमरे में अगर कहीं थोड़ा सा भी प्रकाश आ रहा होगा तो हमारी नजरें उसकी तरफ दौड़ जाती हैं। रात के अंधेरे के बाद हमारी नजरें ढूंढती हैं कि थोड़ा सा भी प्रकाश आता, जान आ जाती है कि अच्छा लाइफ है। तो ऑब्वियस है, हम अज्यूम करते हैं, ये मान के चलते हैं कि लाइट है हमारे अंदर और है। सो एज वी कीप ऑन मेडिटेटिंग and we are purifying ourselves. In fact, we are pure. बस impurity क्या होती है? कुछ हमारे जो thoughts हैं, हमारे actions हैं, वो हमारे heart को solidify कर देते हैं। But अगर हम मान लें I is for I M is for I am. I am pure. So I am pure. So we assume that source of divine light is there in my heart and I am getting attracted towards it. And slowly, slowly, we meditate. As a result, initially thought, thinking, then it changes to feeling. We start feeling it. Then from feeling we evolve to being. From being we evolve to becoming. And from becoming much more ahead. And this all is possible only through absolute openness. इतना अंदर से हमारा इतनी ट्रांसपेरेंसी और इतना कनेक्शन हो जाए कि हम we can master our lives. So when we meditate on our heart, in a way slowly we are transforming ourselves. Whatever way of meditation मे भी सब लोग कर रहे होंगे, बहुत सारे तरीके होते हैं, बट वो तरीका जो हमको मन करता है, हमारी चॉइस होती है कि हमारा ऑब्जेक्ट क्या हो, हमारा ऑब्जेक्ट जैसा हम बनना चाहते हैं वैसा हो जाए, इतना सटल हो जाए. सो व्हेन वी मेडिटेट ऑन हार्ट वी ग्रेजुअली बिकम लाइक दैट. सिंपल सा एक रिलैक्सेशन हम करते हैं मेडिटेशन से पहले. सो इफ द चेयरपर्सन परमिट्स एंड आप सब लोग चाहें तो 2 मिनट के लिए हम रिलैक्सेशन कर सकते हैं. डू यू ऑल वांट टू रिलैक्स? श्योर. सो जेंटली, वेरी जेंटली सिट विद द क्लोज्ड आईज. बहुत आराम से बैठ जाइए. सहज रूप से आंखें बंद कर लीजिए और जैसे जैसे मैं बोलती जाऊं वैसे वैसे फील करते जाइए. अपना ध्यान पैरों की उंगलियों पर लाइए और पैरों की उंगलियों को महसूस करें. पूरी तरीके से आरामदायक स्थिति में आ गई हैं. जस्ट फील इट रिलैक्स्ड. पूरा पैरों का पंजा वह भी एकदम आरामदायक स्थिति में आ गया है. धरती से एनर्जी पंजों के माध्यम से ऊपर की ओर, शरीर में ऊपर की ओर जा रही है. जस्ट फील इट एनर्जाइज्ड. अपने घुटनों को महसूस करें. घुटने भी एकदम रिलैक्स हो गए हैं, एकदम सॉफ्ट और आरामदायक स्थिति में. फील द थाई मसल्स. दे आर ऑल्सो रिलैक्स्ड. अब अपना ध्यान अपनी हिप्स पर लाइए. आपकी हिप्स भी एकदम रिलैक्स हो गई है. जस्ट फील इट रिलैक्स्ड. अब अपना ध्यान अपनी पेट की मांसपेशियों पर लाइए. स्टमक मसल्स, they are also totally relaxed as if never before. Now bring your attention towards the chest muscles, entire chest area is totally relaxed. Just feel it relaxed. अब अपना ध्यान अपनी पीठ पर लाइए. पीठ का नीचे वाला हिस्सा, वेस्ट लाइन, पूरी तरीके से रिलैक्स हो चुका है. पीठ का ऊपर वाला हिस्सा भी एकदम आरामदायक स्थिति में आ गया है। पूरी पीठ रिलैक्स हो चुकी है। जस्ट फील इट रिलैक्स्ड। योर शोल्डर्स आर ऑल्सो मेल्टिंग। कंधे महसूस कीजिए एकदम रिलैक्स हो गए हैं। अब अपना ध्यान अपने हाथों की उंगलियों पर लाइए। उंगलियों से पोरों से लेकर कोहनियों तक हाथ एकदम रिलैक्स हो चुका है। कोहनियों से ऊपर तक पूरी तरीके से आरामदायक स्थिति में आ गया है। पूरा हाथ एकदम रिलैक्स है। जस्ट फील इट। अब अपना ध्यान अपनी गर्दन पर लाइए। गर्दन की सारी अकड़न जा चुकी है और गर्दन एकदम तनाव रहित और फ्लेक्सिबल हो गई है। अपने जबड़ों को महसूस कीजिए। जबड़े भी एकदम रिलैक्स हो गए हैं। आपका पूरा चेहरा, फेशियल मसल्स, लिप्स, नोज, आईज, forehead, just feel it. Relaxed. चेहरा एकदम सॉफ्ट हो गया है। आंखें भी एकदम सॉफ्ट हो गई है। आंखों की गहराई में सिर्फ नमी है। सिर की चोटी से लेकर पांव की उंगलियों तक पूरा शरीर रिलैक्स हो चुका है। जस्ट फील इट। नाउ ब्रिंग योर अटेंशन टुवर्ड्स योर हार्ट। हमारा दिल, हमारा हृदय प्रेममय है, प्रेम से परिपूर्ण है, प्रकाशमय है, प्रकाश से परिपूर्ण है। हृदय से प्रकाश पूरे शरीर में फैल गया है। Every atom of the body is enlightened. सिर की चोटी से लेकर पांव की उंगलियों तक just feel it. Now be in this thought that source of divine light is there in my heart. नूर इलाही मेरे दिल में है और मैं उस ओर आकर्षित हो रहा हूं। Very slowly, gently, when you feel, you may open your eyes. So this is the life. हम जब अपने दिल से जुड़े रहते हैं तो हमारा खुद के प्रति नज़रिया जब बदल जाता है, हमारा एटीट्यूड बदल जाता है, हमारी सोच, हम सब जने पूजा करते हैं, भक्ति करते हैं, सब कुछ करते हैं, इससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि मैं 50 किलो केले चढ़ाती हूँ या मैं खाली हाथ आंखों में दो आंसू भर के दिल से जाती हूँ। मायने वो रखता है कि मुझ में वो तड़प है। तो वो वाइब्रेशंस मेरे दिल के जब उस नेचर के साथ या मेरे खुद के साथ ट्यून हो जाते हैं तो थिंग्स आर आंसर्ड। सो इट इज नॉट द प्रेयर, it is the attitude by which we follow. Let it be any system. Object हमें चूज करना है कि मुझे क्या चाहिए, मैं क्या चाहती हूँ, किस लेवल का एवोल्यूशन चाहती हूँ, किस चीज से मिलना चाहती हूँ, और रास्ता हमारे सामने है। लाइक टुडे गवर्नर साहब एंड उनके जो पर्सनल एडवाइजर थे Rai Saab, they were saying there are so many methods and all the methods they want to reach that same place. मकसद वही है। पर मैं जब चंडीगढ़ के लिए चली तो मैंने ट्रेन का ऑप्शन भी सोचा था, कार का भी सोचा था, पर मालूम नहीं शायद what my soul wanted. So soul is the essence, that energy, it's just essence. और उस एनर्जी से मुझे मिलने के लिए मुझे खुद को विवेकपूर्ण रास्ता चुनना होगा, so that when I meditate, I just plunge in deep within myself, like what Shri Ravi Shankar ji said, that it becomes a celebration. Thank you so much. Thanks to the Chandigarh administration, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. As the topic was techniques in meditation, and we actually went through the complete meditation process. I'm sure we'll be practicing it at the individual level also. Swami Vivekananda popularized Indian concepts of Vedanta and Indian knowledge of spirituality even when we were under British rule. We got freedom, and just a couple of years ago we celebrated 150 years of Swami Vivekananda's birthday. And I remember one of the monks who came to Mumbai University, he said it so beautifully. He said, if Mahatma Gandhi is the father of the nation, Swami Vivekananda is the grandfather of the nation. And when we talk about Swami Vivekananda, the idea is that he set up an institution which has survived the test of time, and you have so many people who actually are followers of Swami Vivekananda in one way or the other. So we have one of our representatives and monks from the Ramakrishna Mission Ashrama, Swami Satyeshananda, who's going to again talk about the techniques of meditation and effects of meditation on mental, social and psychological being. Swamiji, please.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Most revered Swami Krishnanand Maharaj, distinguished speakers on the dais, and my dear beloved brothers and sisters, it gives me great joy to be here. And the subject given to me is techniques in meditation and the effects of meditation on physical, mental, social well-being. So just now we had a practical demonstration of meditation. Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda's guru, was full of fun and humor. He would drive home the most profound principles, ideas through homely illustrations. Regarding this practicality, practical wisdom is infinitely better than tons of theoretical knowledge. He gives a beautiful story. There was a professor, very well learned, but he was very proud of his learning, ghamand hai. So one day he wanted to go to his native place. He had to cross the river. He didn't have motorized boats and all. So he caught hold of a kevat. So bole mujhe le jana, par karna. Then while sailing on the boat, the professor asked him, "तुम physiology पढ़े हो?" नहीं, मैं बहुत गरीब हूँ, अनपढ़ हूँ, मैं कुछ नहीं पढ़ा हूँ, मैं बहुत गरीब हूँ. 25% of your life is gone, he said. 25% जिंदगी बर्बाद होगी. Then they went a little further. Then again the professor asked, "Have you studied neurology?" नहीं प्रभु, नहीं हुजूर मैं कुछ नहीं जानता हूँ, मैं अनपढ़ हूँ, 50% जिंदगी बर्बाद होगी. Then they sail little further. Then he said, have you studied endocrinology? नहीं, कुछ नहीं जानता हूँ, पहले बार जिंदगी में सुन रहा हूँ. So 75% of your life is waste. It has gone in vain. Then suddenly there was a tempest, a cyclone, and the boat started rocking. It was about to capsize. केवट पूछते हैं, प्रभु आप तैरना जानते हैं? स्विमोलॉजी जानते हैं? नहीं, मैं तैरना नहीं जानता हूँ, मैं तो बहुत बड़ा प्रोफेसर हूँ. 100% ऑफ योर लाइफ इज गॉन. 100% जिंदगी बर्बाद हो गई. तो दिस इज ऑफ ट्रेमेंडस इंपॉर्टेंस, दिस प्रैक्टिकल विजडम श्री रामकृष्ण would tell. So the subject is techniques, types of meditation. I have chosen it that way. Basically, we have two types of meditation. One is subjective, another is objective. What does subjective meditation mean? It means going deep within, analyzing Atma Vichar. Who am I? What is my true nature? Am I just a combination of atoms, molecules, hormones, enzymes, juices? Am I a combination of arteries, veins, muscles, nerves? Who am I? Am I a combination of thoughts, emotions, feelings, urges, aspirations, instincts? Am I a body-mind complex? Our rishis went deep within, great investigators, researchers of the inner world. So they said, we are basically Atman, Chaitanya, hum divya hai. So that is Atma Vichar. It's called Nididhyasan in Vedanta. It's like Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi said, who am I? What am I? What is my true nature? That is Vichar. So second type of meditation we are very familiar with. So this is the one slide I'm trying to focus on. This objective meditation is basically this consciousness. Mind usually goes outward. It has a tendency. So meditation on external supports, alambana. So we have different kinds of meditation here. One is, as says previous speaker said, relaxation meditation. Nature, Mother Nature is always relaxed. You look at the trees, look at the greenery, look at the mountain, the majestic ocean. There are animals, a buffalo, a cow, always relaxed. Most of the time they're relaxed. So we need to learn from them. That is the mind relaxing, totally relaxing. And the second thing is expansion meditation. Expansion is, Vivekananda would say, we have to be as broad as the sky and as deep as the ocean. So looking at a majestic mountain, looking at the infinite sky, a mighty ocean, the mind becomes expanded. So hum udar ho jate hain. We will be, right now our problems appear to be very big because the ego is big. So when we look at the majesty of nature, our ego gets smaller and smaller, tinier and tinier. So the problems become easy to handle. The third is value meditation. What exactly is value meditation? Value meditation is meditating on values. I am full of purity, I am full of love, I am full of relaxation, I am full of knowledge, I am not a sinner, I am basically divine. As Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within me, I and my Father are one. So this is basically meditating on divine virtues. I am Shantoham, I am full of peace, I am Abhayaswarupaha, I am freedom from all fears. So this is value meditation. So we have relaxation meditation, thank you, relaxation meditation, then expansion meditation, value meditation, and the most important thing, most of us, as Madam said, most of the time our minds are restless. We have to work, we have to earn our living. We are not yogis sitting and meditating in the Himalayan caves. We have to face challenges of life. So this concentration meditation is of tremendous help. What does it mean? Concentration meditation is meditating on divine mantras like Omkar, Pranav meditation, or meditating on the Ishta Devata. My Ishta Devata is Shiva, my Ishta Devata is Vishnu, Krishna, or Jagannatha, or Sri Ram, whoever it is. So meditating on the holy form of a divine form. So mind easily gets concentrated. We can do it with eyes open or with eyes closed also. Look at I love Hanumanji very much. He's my Ishtadevata. I love Shirdi Sai Baba. Whoever it is. So we imbibe those qualities. So this is concentration meditation. So basically we have this relaxation meditation, concentration meditation, expansion meditation, and value meditation. So the most important slide is to meditation. What is exactly meditation? It's derived from a Latin word called meditare, means healing. I have to heal myself. I have to become an integrated whole. At present, we appear to be fragmented. So this meditation makes us whole, integrated personalities. Like one of the greatest mystics, Sri Aurobindo said, this integral yoga. The man becomes whole, man becomes complete, perfect. That's holistic health. So this slide, what does it show? Basically, as everybody said, we have 3 dimensions. So meditating on the divinity that is within. Meditating. Basically, this body and mind are always fragile, vulnerable to so many external factors. A little extra calcium, a little extra acetylcholine, or a little dopamine. If dopamine is a little more, I get certain symptoms. Acetylcholine is more, or these neurotransmitters are in a state of imbalance. So the body and mind are highly fragile. So our rishis said we must go deep within and meditate on our true nature. That is basically, I am Atman, Chaitanya, we are divine. But for most of us, we are bound by this body-mind complex. So we are bound to this. We find it difficult to meditate on this. It's easy to discuss theories of Vedanta, but in practical life, we are swept off. We lose our balance. As Swamiji said it so beautifully, balance is so important. He said external work, selfless service, and meditation must go hand in hand. So this meditation constantly, Vivekananda defines it as the process by which the current and expression of will are brought under control. The current and expression, basically it is mind management. Arjun, one of the greatest heroes of all times, a man of great integrity, a man of great refinement, learning, closest friend of Sri Krishna, he voiced humanity's problems. He said, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna, pramati balavadridam. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. Krishna, my mind is restless. I am unable to meditate. I am unable to focus. I am unable to discharge my duties. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna, pramati balavadridam. Tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. How difficult it is to still the movement of air, to control the movement of air. So I find it extremely difficult. My mind bhatak raha hai, chanchal hai, asthir hai. Then Sri Krishna, great friend of ours, he did not snub. Oh, what is this? You are talking like a fool. Krishna, with great sympathy, with great love, like a mother, million mother hearts put together, Sri Krishna says, my dear Arjun, you are a great hero. Why do you talk like this? Asankshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam. I understand human weaknesses, human failings. You are a great hero, you are an authority in your field, greatest archer, but I understand human mind is very difficult to control. Asankshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihete. These are great powerful aids, this abhyasa and vairagya. So what does meditation help? The next topic is, for me, the effects of meditation. So through abhyasa, constant practice, satat nirantar prayatna se, and vairagya. What does it mean? Going away to a Himalayan forest? No. Vairagya is detachment, dispassion, that is true. But intense love for God, intense love for a higher life, to lead a higher life, to lead a noble life. So vairagya means this. It is not just a negative thing. Positivity is love of our true nature, love of my Ishtadevata, love of the Divine Mother who has given birth to this cosmos. So basically, all these meditative techniques can become fruitful only when we have intense love, intense passion, intense aspiration. Sri Aurobindo puts it beautifully. He says, we must pray to the Divine Mother for 3 things: Shanti, Sthirta or Samta. Mother, give me peace of mind, make my mind tranquil, serene, calm, so that I can do my work properly, I can discharge my duties properly. Second thing is Sthirta, make my mind steady. We have to, Bhagwan se mangna hai, we have to demand it from the mother. Otherwise she thinks my children are be happy playing with toys, busy playing with toys. So praying, this is a very important thing. Meditation just doesn't mean closing the eyes and trying to control the mind, making it a thoughtless state. No. Meditation is intense awareness, that meditative awareness of our true nature. Who am I? What am I? Why am I here? Where am I headed to? So prayer plays a very important, another how many minutes I have? Because I'm conscious of. So prayer plays a very important role. Dr. Alexis Carrel, Man the Unknown, the celebrated author, he won Nobel Prize for his pioneering work on vascular surgery. It's a super surgery. He got basically a French surgeon. He migrated to the United States. He would tell in that book, classical book, Man the Unknown. Man the Known, we know anatomy, physiology, we have studied, biochemistry, we have studied, endocrinology. Man the Unknown, he says, prayer is the most powerful form of energy one can generate. As a physician, I have seen men lifted out of suffering and melancholy by the serene effort of prayer. It is as real as terrestrial gravity. Like radium, it is self-rejuvenating. When we pray, we link ourselves with that inexhaustible supreme spirit which spins this universe. So that is the enormous efficacy of prayer. भगवान से प्रार्थना करना, क्या प्रभु मैं आपकी संतान हूँ. Swami Ashokananda was a great disciple of Swami Vivekananda. He would tell his disciples, you tell mother frankly, openly, with an open heart, Mother, God, I am unable to meditate. You know my mind. I am unable to focus. I am unable to take Nam Jap. So, praying is another important thing. And then as Guru Nanak Ji put it so beautifully, the very essence of meditation. This meditation is a way of life, not just sitting in the morning and evening. No. He said, Naam Japo, Kirit Karo and Vanchapo. This contains the essence, the cream of this meditative life. Naam Japo, Hamesha Bhagwan ka naam smaran karna. Whatever mantra Guru has given us, universal mantras like Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Mata Di, Jai Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai, whatever name that appeals to us, as Patanjali says, Ishvara Pranidhanatva. That is self-surrender to the divine. So, Naam Japo, Kirit Karna, we are all workers, we have to work to earn our livelihood. We have to face so many challenges, but working with a spirit of dedication. मैं भगवान का सेवक हूँ, भगवान का बंदा हूँ, गुलाम हूँ. I'm a child of the divine. I am doing this work for the sake of the Lord. Gita puts it so beautifully. We don't have time. The third is Vanchapo. Whatever talents, whatever energy resources I have, so I share it with others. So this summarizes the effect, the whole thing of meditative life. And then in Punjabi they say, Sukhvele Shukrana, an attitude of gratitude. God, you have given me so many things. You have given me good parents, good education, good health. Millions of people don't have these blessings. So Sukhvele Shukrana, Dukhvele Ardas, Har Vele Simira. So this is meditation. Remembering the Lord, praying to the Lord, and when we do our work sincerely, wholeheartedly, offering all the fruits of action at the feet of the Lord. As we say, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. So I am extremely grateful to all of you.
I'm sure we all have enjoyed, I would say. Because the way Swamiji put it, I think it was full of bhakti and love, right? So I'm sure we should look at one separate session on bhakti and yoga some other time. So we come to the final speaker of this particular session. We have Dr. Tabassum Sheikh from Mumbai University and Concept of Meditation in Islam and Patanjali Yoga. That's her paper. Ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers from Mumbai University as well as from Chandigarh for giving me this opportunity to present this paper. In fact, I was, like ours is being, practically speaking, a minority institution in Mumbai, and like we have introduced this yoga in our college, being a minority Muslim institution, and we see that it is being carried out very regularly, and we have not faced any kind of opposition from the parents or the management as such, and the students, they very well, when they say the Omkara, it is something which it's something which one needs to see and observe it. So this has yoga, if it has not met with any kind of opposition, especially when everybody is practicing it, it means that it has a universal appeal. It has something to do with the universal message. And this is what I'm trying to put across. That it has been, the yoga easily is integrated with the Islamic life. In fact, the two assist one another. Both are agreed while the body is important as a vehicle on the way to spiritual realization and salvation. The human being's primary identity is not the body, but the eternal spirit. it is not tied to a Hindu religion as such, but has a universal applicability. And what I have tried to put in this paper of mine is the metaphysical underlining which both yoga and Islam, and then along with that the prayer, meditation, the preparatory part of prayer and meditation, and how one goes through the ablution. This is what I've tried to put this. So the metaphysical doctrine is very much similar to the concept of Tawheed in Islam, the oneness of God, which has been now and again the very essence of Islam has been brought out, and this is very found even in the Advaita Vedanta, which is in agreement with the Tawheed. Then we see this, that the Advaita Vedanta and Islamic esoteric metaphysics are agreed that God is the only absolute, real, eternal reality. All else is contingent and therefore transitory. Apart from that, we see that the Kundalini in yoga, the Kundalini is a feminine power, Shakti, that dwells at the base of the spine. Similarly, the symbolism is very much akin to the symbolism of Prophet Muhammad's Shab-e Mehraj, which we call the Holy Night, corresponding to the symbolism in yoga. The Prophet ascended on al-Buraq, a riding beast, with the head of a woman. Through the seven heavens reaches the throne of God. So a kind of a similarity of Kundalini yoga with the seven chakras. With this ascent of Mehraj has been, I have tried to, I could identify the similarity. Then one of the most basic things which has come out in Islam is the 5 times obligatory prayer, and it is not this daily prayer referred to as Salah in the Arabic language is an act of worship specific and unique to Islam. And this is the 5 obligatory prayer, 5 times which is expected. And the other is the meditation, the zikr. It's a form of worship, which is meaning meditation is an individual act of remembering Allah at all times to glorify Him and remain thankful for His mercy and beneficence. In this, what I have tried to see is the obligatory prayers is very much in comparison to the Ishvara Pranidhana in the Yoga Sutra, part of the 23rd of the Yoga Sutra, and this sutra is a very succinct, condensed type of literature, and it does not what is called, and I think would be further from the truth that Godhead, the God is a mere figurehead or abstraction, therefore not so, it is not so important, it's just as one of my colleagues mentioned, it is just an aid in reaching the end. So Patanjali wisely chose to refer God as Ishvara, which in Sanskrit simply means God, the Supreme Being, and does not name any deity of any particular religion. So this universality frees yoga from conflict of any religious doctrine. There is nothing specifically Hindu or Islamic about its techniques, but it will assist the devotee in any kind of worship. Even what is called as a Trataka, which is expected, the one-pointedness, concentration. So even in Islamic prayer, while standing in the Islamic prayer, we practice Trataka by fixing the gaze on a spot on the ground where the forehead rests in sujood or sajda, which we say. So during Ruku, the Trataka is directed at the point between the big toes. The purpose is to focus the attention on the prayer and keep it from wandering. In this way, it helps to lead a meditative state. This has been mentioned by one of our scholars also, but the Sufi spiritual practice is to invoke the divine name and meditate upon it. The Sufi orders practice meditation and invocation focused within certain centers, and which is called Lataif, in the subtle body. This is the same technique which is used by the yogi meditation upon the chakras. With regard to the ablution part, any act of worship in Islam requires the devotee to have a very clean intention, and for that he needs to be performing physical cleanliness to ready himself for spirituality. So before every mandatory namaz or salat, one intends to recite the Quran, one has to perform the wuzu. And therefore he has to maintain a very high level of physical cleanliness and spiritual purity. By commencing this namaz with clean body and clear intention, the worshipper enters the state of mind appropriate to communicate with the Almighty. This is an exclusive act performed at least 5 times by the Muslims and has scientifically been noted to relax and de-stress the person. It goes without saying that both Islam and yoga require basic physical and moral cleanliness and purify. We call as the taharat, or in which yoga is called the saucha or cleanliness. Taharat is the state of cleanliness. The two differ in several respects, but one feature that is common for both is to using water to rinse the breathing passages. A yoga which is called the yoga kriya or the jalaniti, which consists of pouring water into one nostril so that it flows through the sinuses out of the other nostril. The Muslim, when making wuzu, takes water up the nose and blows it out. This is called istinsha. Again, the Islamic version does not do as deep, being simplified to make it accessible to everyone. Now, the formal prayer, as we see, it consists of, each prayer has a certain number of repetitive units called as the rakats, and a total of 17 are they prayed during the day. Each of the physical and spiritual movements of namaz demonstrated by the Prophet is accompanied by supplications to be recited in the Arabic. Now, in a world like what I want to see through this comparison of purification, saucha, and taharat of Islam. Similarly, the prayer, the one-pointedness of prayer in yoga, and also the focus and the concentration in the namaz, which should not be broken at any cost. It points out that somewhere what is called as even in this life of stress or anxiety, one needs to take time out for the prayer and de-stress oneself, which is possible. And this is expected both in yoga, that in a stressful life you need, some time you remove for yourself and you practice it. So it is not something which is very far away, which is something you have to do after some time. No, it is there, it is obligatory, and it has to be done. And this is how one can bring peace in your everyday life. Now, the what is called as I would like to. It is not a one-to-one. The concept of meditation, both in Islam or the preparatory purification stages, are not something one-to-one between a comparison between Islam and yoga, because a very strong, or a very intimate comparison will definitely bring out some inflammatory signals. But Islam, with its with its obligatory prayers, and yoga with its one-pointed, what is called as concentration, it has something which we call as it cannot fulfill. Nobody can substitute, nor yoga cannot substitute the Islamic requirements. But at the same time, what we see is that there is. Or we cannot say, how does this culture, how does something which is so similar, like the cleaning of the nostrils or the one-pointed focus which is there, how is it that two very different cultures, a kind of similarity can be seen? So my observation, my conclusion is this, that one cannot, what is called as something, a horizontal, what is called as borrowing of cultures, but it is the concept of one creator, one creator, and that one creator now and then has always sent his apostles on this earth. And when these apostles come, this brings something which is very similar. It cannot be different. And that is the thing which I wanted to bring out. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Tabassum ma'am, for giving so many insights which probably is not known to us, especially the school part of it, the education she's involved with. We come to the final part of this whole session, that is the concluding remarks by the chairperson. Swamiji started it and he's been making notes. So I would say with all the speakers giving different dimensions of meditational techniques of yoga, I would request chairperson to kindly give his concluding remarks.
Benefit in different religions. For example, I was very much aware of the practice of yoga in Jainism, but not so much in detail as I got to learn here. And in fact, my own personal feeling is when I went to Mount Kailash some years back, and I found out that there is a place there where the first Tirthankar of the Jains found his salvation or the freedom there at Mount Kailash, and he's called Adinath, and many people believe that Adinath is no different from Lord Shiva himself or an incarnation of Shiva. So there are many similarities. Origin of Jainism is also not known to us how many thousands of years it was way back in the past. Then we also had a different view at I've gone through Patanjali's Yoga Sutras so many times, and we had a very good review of the Yama-Niyama principles and the different stages of Pratyahara, especially what the Samyama can do for you if you concentrate your whole mind on any particular subject, how they can be revealed to you. And there are hundreds of examples of this in our country. One of the best examples that occurs to me, in addition to what she told us, was the discovery of Vedic mathematics, where the Shankaracharya of Puri of that time, he used to focus on different sutras, and he found that these are nothing but mathematical sutras, and found ways of instant calculations of very complicated equations. And then we had Dr. Bimala about the heartfulness. Yes, the role of heart in meditation is one of the most important things that is forgotten by many people, especially those who practice yoga and techniques. Their mind is getting focused so much on the techniques that they forget the feeling aspect. The feeling is as important or even more important, as Swamiji was telling us. The devotion is far more important, that without that devotion you can't find the ultimate. One of our personal story that comes to my mind is one of the devotees of Paramahansa Yogananda went once to him and said, "Guruji, today I have finished 1,000,000 kriyas." 1,000,000 kriyas means he was expecting that he'll get a pat on his back and said, "Oh, that means you must have made it all the way to Nirvikalpa Samadhi." But not at all. Paramahansa Yogananda simply replied to him, 6 would have been enough. And then when the person went away, Guruji looked at the other devotees who were standing around him, and he said, "That man thinks that he can make it on his own. But he will get to the door will not open. He can, without devotion, you can get with yoga, you can go all the way to the door, but the door will not open if you don't have bhakti." And that For that, you have to concentrate on your heart chakra or meditate as we were shown here. Swamiji here from the Ramakrishna Mission, I know him since he was in Ranchi. We were quite old friends from those days. He used to visit our ashram many times, and it was very interesting to listen to his stories about Ramakrishna and different aspects of meditation that are also new to me, that I didn't know before. And more important and most revealing to me was the last talk about the similarities between Islam and Patanjali's yoga. And that reminds me of what, again, the use of samyama. When you get to that stage where you have that level of intuition developed in you, then you can penetrate through the scriptures and see for yourself what the scriptures really have to say. And one of the examples of that is The Wine of the Mystics, is a book written by Paramahansa Yogananda on the Rubaiyat of Umar Khayyam. When you read Rubaiya open just like that as a ordinary poetry, you think it is just romantic poetry. There's nothing there. But Paramahansa Yogananda was able to penetrate through that and show that it is not simple romantic poetry, but it is spiritual scripture, experience of samadhi and sweetness of meditation, union with God within your own self. And most of these things are shown there. So thank you again to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to learn so many things within this last 1.5 hours. Jai Guru.
Thank you, Swamiji, for your concluding remarks. I think the most touching point was that he told that he's a student of yoga. While we all learned from you, Swamiji, because there's so many dimensions we can keep learning about the same subject that we are involved in. As we close this particular session, I would request from the organizing team, Dr. N.S. Bharadwaj to kindly come forward and give our token of love and appreciation to the chair speaker, Swamiji. He's the Deputy Director, Ayurveda, Department of Ayush, Chandigarh Administration. Please. Swami Krishnanandji. Thank you so much, Swamiji. Now I would request for the photograph, please. That's for the records. Thank you, Swamiji. I request Chairperson to kindly stay back. Swamiji, I would request you to kindly hand over the token of love and respect to Dr. Veena Londeji. Dr. Vimlaji. Swami Satyeshanandji. I'm not sure, very aware that you're going to share the same dice because they're already friends. But you know, the two dimensions from the two different monks and the similarities in yoga. Thank you so much. And Dr. Tabassum Sheikh. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I request all the dignitaries to kindly be seated. We'll be preparing for the next session. Before they leave, kindly give a big round of applause. और एक session बाकी है. But I'll tell you the good news first. You know, that's better. The good news है घर पे जाके करोगे क्या? क्योंकि moonlight योगा के लिए जाना है. और जो बाहर से आए उनका arrangement हो चुका है. The second good news is that tomorrow we are going to start 1 hour late and also end up 1 hour late. You know, so कल 10 बजे शुरू होगा और 4:30 बजे खत्म होगा. वो हमारे ऊपर है. But you know, we have one more session, the final session. Interestingly, even though this session, the final session, going to the 4th session, is technically the 5th session because we are the inaugural session also. It's a long day. I'm going to invite all the speakers for the next session as they're getting prepared. I'm going to do something interesting. Rather, I would request one of our teachers or other students, a student who has become a teacher of yoga in Mumbai University, Sandeep Solanki, to come forward. Because the reason that we've been sitting so much, there is some blood circulation required, right? So as the new speakers come on, we request 1.5 minutes of stretching yoga by Sandeep Solanki. So kindly lead us. So I request the next speakers to come forward. Sandeep, 1 minute. We have the chairperson, Professor Nandita Singh, Dr. Priya Vaidya. We have APN Pankaj ji, then Minakshi ji, Sumit Arora ji, Suchitra Naik, and Ulka Nathu ji. Kindly come forward. And the organizers will change the dice by the time Sandeep, if you can help.